I'm Kenji Obata. I'm with turbo.net. So you can actually follow along with the demo if you can keep your typing speeds up at turbo.net if you install our client. So what I'm going to do here, how many of you are familiar with app virtualization? Probably many of you. Okay, everybody. Okay. And have you heard of containers? Oh yes, we've heard of containers and we love containers. So what we're going to be talking about Turbo Containers, which is a container engine for the Windows desktop. If some of you may have heard of Spoon, which is an app virtualization engine that we developed. So Turbo is sort of the next generation of the Spoon VM, and we've added essentially container functionality. So what we're going to try to do in today's demo is... I know, I switched the resolution, so you might get a kind of annoying breaks. Huh?
No. This is like 2000 by something.
No, I changed. So anyways, maybe you might get little interruptions. So, okay, so what we're going to try to do, and I know some of you are more or less familiar with containers, so we're going to just do a blitzkrieg demo. Instead of showing a bunch of slides and talking about what containers and what Turbo does, I'm just going to blast away. So feel free to ask questions. We're going to try to kind of pace it. We're kind of compressing a lot into a very short period. So if anything's unclear, just ask, and we'll make it we'll try to pace it based on kind of where we see the audience is going. So I know some of you are experts. I know Eric, who I actually see here finally. Hey, Eric. We've Skyped. So Eric is an expert. He's a Turbo fan. And so, but yeah, if you don't know what I'm talking about, then just ask a question. So container, you can think of a container essentially as kind of virtual machine. The key thing here is just like an app virt, you're running on a single kernel, so you're not running a whole copy of the OS. But in many ways, the container works like any other virtual machine. So, thank you. I feel like this is going to do this at the most inopportune moments, but that's all right. All right, come on, Dell.
Do you have a Chromebook as well?
No, I don't have any. I have two Dells. Come on. There it goes. Okay, so really quickly before it goes out, one of the most simple commands you can do, so everything I'm going to show from the command line interface. There are many interfaces into Turbo. I'm going to do the command line because I hear that you guys are smart and experts and you like being in the weeds. So we're going to do command line. But obviously users and things won't be interacting with command line. So the simplest command we can do in Turbo is just turbo new clean. So what's that going to do? The new command is going to create a new container. And clean is a special image. Clean represents a clean OS image. So what you just saw here is I ran turbo new clean and I popped up a command prompt. And you can see that we just tweak the console, the prompt here to let me know that I'm in the clean image. And A961, what that is that's just a randomly assigned. It says A961 and then before the prompt. That's a randomly assigned container ID. So the way to think of this is an image is like a DVD. It's like a system image. A container is an instance of that image. So you can have multiple containers, let's say multiple clean containers, multiple app containers against that single image. So, and if I go in here to my program files, let's say, so I have a bunch of stuff on this laptop, but I'm actually, by virtue of saying turbo new clean, I got a clean machine. So already that's kind of interesting, right? How you just want to spin up clean machines to do something. You can just say turbo new clean, that pops up. And you'll notice that pops up right away. So it's not needing to boot up a Windows instance. It's able to just pop those up in seconds. Okay, so that's sort of interesting, okay? So it'll be more interesting if I can install stuff into my clean machine. So if you guys are familiar with FinApp or AppV or something, you go through sequencing and you have to get a clean machine and you image and do all this stuff. Okay, so I'm going to show you how that works in the container world. So I'm going to install something on a clean image. I'm going to have a little issue though, because by default when I launch a container, it can't see the host device. So it's a standalone VM. So how am I going to get my installers and get all my other stuff into it? So what I'm going to do is use a slight variation of that command. I'm going to say turbo new clean, and I'm going to use the mount command. I'm just going to go and it'll come in and out when it does. So I'm going to use this mount command. What mount's going to do is it's going to mount the C installers directory that's on the host system, and it's going to map that into the container space. So I'm popping up a new clean device, and you'll see that I can go into installers So essentially with containers, you can just selectively isolate or de-isolate specific. Here I'm doing a file system. You can do that with registry network, and we're going to see some of that in a second. Okay, so I'll go ahead and just run the Sublime. I have the Sublime installer here. So I'll just go through and run the setup. And I can go into my program files, and I'm going to try a new adapter. Okay, here, I'm going to let you do that while I'll just talk. So I'm going to go into my program files, and using your mind's eye, you'll see Sublime Text as a directory. So I've actually run through the Sublime Text installer. And if I go, I'm just going to nav into Sublime Text, and I'll go ahead and let's see if that's going to give it. There we go. Okay, so I'm in the Sublime Text folder, and you can see I see sublimetext.exe. I'll go ahead and run that just to prove that I've actually installed it. Come on, Sublime Text. There we go, and there's my Sublime Text. Okay, so that's fine. I'm running Sublime Text. Hello world. All right. So I'm going to exit out. So now you'll notice that that container is, so the first container I ran that was clean was that A961, and now I installed Sublime Text in container CE1D. So I can actually go back. So one thing I can do actually, by the way, let's say I was messing around with my clean image. I don't like that one. I can just say turbo, remove A961, boom, and the container's gone. It's off my system. So it's very great for spinning up environments, blowing them away, and nothing's going on the device here. So I'm keeping a completely clean device. You can also visualize that as a XenApp server, where I can be spinning up these containers on a XenApp server, nothing's going on the base image. Okay, so let's go back, and I say I want to run my Sublime Text. So I go turbo start CE1D. So I'm going to relaunch the container that I have Sublime Text in. Oh, but that's kind of a little bit lame because by default it's going to give me the command prompt. And actually, really, when I run an app, I want it to run into, so I have Sublime Text in here, but I really want to create a fresh image that's going to be launching directly into Sublime Text. So what I'm going to do for that is a commit command, which I have a cheat sheet for the startup file. Here we go. So that container is CE1D, and I'm going to issue the command, and then we can walk through its meaning. So what we're doing here, so what commit does is it's going to take, remember we started with an image, we created containers. Commit is going to go from containers back to images. So in this case, I've installed Sublime Text. I want to create an image that I can then push out to my users. So what I'm going to do is commit that container. I'm going to call that image Sublime. Overwrite just means it'll overwrite the existing one. And I just set a startup file. So now it'll know when I launch this image, I want it to start in Sublime Text. So I create a new image. It's saved that as Sublime. So now I can actually say turbo run Sublime. And that will kick off that image. It's actually going to create a fresh container since that's a new image. And you can see it's launched Sublime Text. And by the way, since I had hello world, all of the state, one of the important things with containers is all of the state is going into the container. So since I said hello world and saved it, and it was persisted, and that's what got committed into my image. So you can imagine this with pre-configuring any application. I just go in, set the settings, commit the image, and I can push that out now. And when my users ran this app, it would have all of that state pre-configured. So that is how you create an image, a custom image with containers. Now, for those of you, how many of you have made something with AppV? Image something with AppV. So you'll notice we went from start to finish in no time. It was a little bit faster than your experience with AppV, and you'll also notice not only did we build the image, but we customized it. We did, I did the hello world, and we could have done other stuff. So that's very nice. So we think that the turbo container interface is a little bit easier to deal with. Okay, but here's the thing. So actually, let me start. Any questions on what I just showed as a starting point? So because we're gonna delve to the next dimension here.
It looks too simple.
It's too simple.
Yeah.
I know. It's terrible. Anyways, yeah. No. What we're trying to do here, from a high level perspective, is AppVert. One of the issues that we saw is that there were so many barriers to adoption. So there was, first of all, you had with AppV something, you have to have a lot of servers, you have to have infrastructure, Active Directory, SQL, and then you have all the packaging tools. You got to build the packager, you got to hire the packager, you got to, and it, in our view or my view, that was one of the things that prevented this from being a really mass market product. Is that there were just so many adoption barriers and so many training barriers to getting it in. So one of the key goals with the container style interfaces is to really make it something that every enterprise, and actually Turbo, our goal is actually every individual user can actually use containers. So we actually try to make it simple enough that even individual home users can use containers. So definitely we want to tear down any kind of adoption barrier. So you don't need any servers to use Turbo. You actually don't even need, this actually runs completely user mode. So you don't need any administrator permissions. You don't need any device drivers. So you can go up to a device that you have no permissions on and Turbo run stuff, and it will actually work. It'll emulate the admin. So the purpose was to be super, super simple, super, super low, low cost, low barrier. So we definitely view this as a kind of, a paradigm shifting type of product. Okay, but even this was too difficult. So we must make it even easier. All right, because there I had to install and mount stuff, and that could be too hard. So we don't want to lose it. And really, the majority of you probably are packaging more or less the same applications across all the enterprises. So I mean, there's 100 apps that everybody is using, and that's accounting for 80-90% of your apps. So what we actually do with Turbo is we have a hub, and I'll go ahead and go into the hub. So in the Turbo hub, we actually have many of the popular things like all the web browsers, all of the frameworks, tools, everything. And we actually automatically configure and have either recipes or images for most of the stuff that you're going to use. So our goal is that in 90% of cases, you're actually never going to even need to run an install. You'll be able to pull something off the hub and run it. So let me demonstrate that. So for example, let's say I just want to run the latest version of Firefox. I can say Turbo New Firefox. And what that's going to do is when it sees something that doesn't resolve locally against the local image cache, it's going to go up to TurboNet and say, hey, TurboNet, do you have something called Firefox? And I said, yes, I have Firefox. Here's Firefox. And it'll pop it down, and now here's my Firefox. Okay? So that's something that's quite useful. And you can do all the same kinds of things. So let's say, okay, I want to make, I love E2EVC, so I'm going to go to E2EVC, and I will make this my home page.
Not until it redirects.
Oh, yeah. And, okay. So let's go and make this my home page, use current page, So I'm just showing that basically not only can you can pull something off the hub, and then you can go and, tweak it up like, typically IT wants to do a bunch of options. All right, so you'll see that that was in this container. So I could say, so here's an interesting thing, just to make sure we understand this. So that, I created an instance of Firefox, and that ID is 1ADF here. And if I didn't want to use that, if I turbo new Firefox, that'll actually pop out a fresh container. So this one, when it pops up, come on Firefox, will not have any of the state that was in the one I just configured. So you notice this does not have E2E as the home page. This is not the optimized Firefox because I created a new container. If I turbo start 1ADF, you'll see I have the state over here. And the reason I talk about that is one of the key differences between containers and what you think of with AppVert is that state management and storage management is a sort of first-class citizen. So it's not just like a sandbox folder. There's a full transactional image database system and state management system that's backing that up. So for example, you can run multiple of the same images with different state associated with them, which is really powerful, let's say, again, in a Zen app environment or even on a local desktop environment where you can have different browsers with different configuration. Good question?
So if you kill the tab, let's say, from Firefox, I presume as long as it's the same, pretty much, executable with the same parent, usually you'll be able to drop the tab on another instance of the window.
Oh, how does that work? It depends on the configuration. So you can actually control the isolation level of the container, and you can say that I want these pipes to work, these decom objects to work, these things. So you can actually scope the level of isolation. So you can, in some cases you want like Excel to talk to Word or whatever, you can set it to do that, or you can put them in a strong isolation mode. You can even isolate things like the clipboard, the mutexes, the pipes, and I'm actually going to demonstrate. I'm not going to demonstrate all of that because it gets into a little bit more of the weeds because you have to kind of know, that's more application specific, but I will show how we, each container actually has its own network stack. So you can actually control the network on a per container basis. That's a really powerful thing for IT admin. So I'm actually going to demonstrate that one.
So like if you run that stack, you will not see
Correct. And actually we'll see, you can actually do more, there'll be routing and anyways, well, we're only 10 minutes in. Okay, so, and we're already popping off stuff and configuring VPNs and things. Okay, so here's my E2E one. And then just to demonstrate again that, so if I wanted, I could say turbo commit 180F to Firefox, oops. So I can make an awesome custom E2E VC Firefox. And actually push that out to the web. And then you could have an icon that would say, Firefox E2E VC. And so you could push that out as an application image, and anyone who is running that image would automatically pop into the E2E VC homepage. Okay, so there you've already made like a kind of little custom browser. So that's cute. Okay, so that's great. But one of the problems with having a fixed hub is, you're going to be stuck with the way that we configured things, which is not necessarily ideal. So we want to give you a language that you can use to create different combinations and variations of apps beyond just what we did there. So if I'll show you a layering command. So what I'm going to do here is turbo run JRE comma Firefox. So what the comma command does is it's going to take multiple images out of the hub and layer them on top of each other. So JRE is the Java runtime. In this case, I'm taking the Java, the latest Java runtime, which is 8.91, the latest Firefox. I'm layering them together. It's going to synthesize that virtual environment on the fly. So this is going to be a fresh container since this has a fresh image spec. So this is D46E. So you'll notice it doesn't have our other settings. But if I go in here to the add-ons, plugins, you'll see that I have Java 8 installed. So you can also dynamically synthesize new instances of client apps that have any version of Java, any version of Flash, any version of .NET, whatever. And those things, again, this is a great, from a admin and security perspective, you're not going to have Java on your host device. So there's no Java on the machine, it's just running in the containerized environment. So great for that like legacy app that needs Java. And speaking of legacy apps, I will also, so there's another variant of this command, which is the colon operator. So what the colon operator does is it specifies a specific version. So I say turbo run Firefox, it's the latest Firefox. Turbo run Firefox 35 will give me Firefox version 35. So let's pop that up, and you'll see if I go into help about, this is actually Firefox 35. And any version of any browser can coexist with any other version of any browser on the same session. So no need for siloing, no need for any of that stuff. Okay, so that's nice. And then of course you can combine all of those operators. So you can do a command like, this is my sample, JRE7 with Firefox 35. So you basically can take any version, mix and match them, spin it up, and you'll have, this will be again Firefox 35, and I have plugins, Java 7 installed. So great for configuring really specific environments for users. So any questions about that? Makes sense, right? I know I'm moving pretty quickly, so it's okay if you're following along. Okay, so, I'm sorry? Oh, there was somebody talking. All right, so, automation. Actually, you know what, let's, we don't have tons of time, so let's skip directly to, we'll do some automation. So let me show you a little bit more about how these things are built. Let's say you don't want to use our images because you don't trust Kenji, or Rory, looks a little odd. So what we actually do is on GitHub, we've open sourced, so we have a language called TurboScript, which basically drives the automation that knows how to build all of the apps. So the apps that you're seeing in our public repo are just CI systems that are running the TurboScripts. We've open sourced all these scripts, so you can actually go onto GitHub, pull down the script, and build it yourself. It's also a great way to see, what we're doing. So if, for example, in Audacity, you could go in, and the script, it's pretty self-explanatory. I mean, most people could just look at it, and you could go in there and tweak what we're doing with the build. It's also great if you say, oh, okay, you've configured, Turbo has the app this way, but I actually want to tweak these settings and tweak these things. Going to the script is a great way to do that. You can go pull our script, just tweak it up, and then stick it into your own automation, and now you have a build environment. So it's not just a black box. And building those things, very easy. So for example, I have on my box the TurboMe file for VLC Media Player. So the command to build that is just turbo build, give it the TurboMe file, and I have the overwrite flag there because I've already spit out this image once, so it's just going to overwrite what's there, otherwise it would error out. So all you have to do is pull down that script file from GitHub, turbo build, give it the script, and in just a moment here, it should spit out a new image. It's running it is running the installer and doing the commit. So it'll just take a moment. Oh, actually, I want to highlight something here, because some of you are familiar with Docker. I love this. I love this. This is one of my favorite features in, this is one of my favorite features. So this is more for you Docker nerds. So one thing you'll notice is that that script is using Python. So it's very common in a script. You'll pull in, you want to use Python to do something to help configure the app, right? So we want to pull in Python into the image, but I don't want Python in my image. Turbo has this concept called transient layers. So if you're familiar with C#, there's the using command, and you can see here I'm going to use wget, which I'm going to use to download something, and Python, which I'm going to use to script stuff. So what the using command does is create a transient layer. So basically, in the using scope, in this case it's scoped global, so it's just going to go away when the script goes away. It'll pull in the wget image and the Python image from the Turbo hub. You'll be able to use wget and use Python in the script. As soon as the scope of the using exits, in this case, end of the script, Python and wget go away. So I could use wget, I could use Python, I can run commands, I have that in my environment, I'm using it, it's great. Script exits, that goes away, and I'm just left with what I want, which is VLC Media Player. So that's one of our, so for people that are really into Docker, that's an interesting concept. Another thing is multiple inheritance. You can actually use multiple inheritance of images. So you can turbo run A, B, C, D, and you can inherit from, multiple base images. So multiple dependency and multiple inheritance is a primitive. I don't know why this is, maybe it's on the internet. I think it's downloading. Is it downloading?
Question.
Yes, question.
So the script installs the software every time it builds, or
yeah, in this case,
is this just the piece that builds the image, and then
this is building the image, exactly. This is a script that is building the image. Once the image is built, you don't need to do anything. So all essentially this is doing is, when I went through Sublime Text and I manually created the image, this is just how to do it in an automatic way. And this is also how, with the GitHub, you can actually share. So I mean, I just, you guys, you write like a 10-page blog post of how to configure blah 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 with, AppV or Turbo or whatever. So instead of giving a blog post about how to do it, why not just give a script that they can just run and create the image and then customize. And then once that image is built, you push that out and you don't need to do anything else. So I think this is downloading the VLC setup, and it seems to be just like hanging out. So we'll just let that run. It normally, if you were to run this on a normal network, it should be like...
Did you log into the guest network again?
I'm on the guest network, so Mirage Wi-Fi. So anyways, we'll just let that hang out. Anyways, but it'll build for sure, VLC. Okay. So that's interesting. Okay, so I'm not, I want to emphasize that what I'm going here is only showing about like 5% of what you can do in terms of the expressiveness of the container engine. So I do want to highlight a few really interesting things that you can do though, because I think they're things that seem to be kind of interesting from a system admin perspective. So one thing we can do is, remember, each container has its own network stack. So you can actually define routing rules on a per container basis without needing to have any type of appliance or drivers around it. So what I'm going to do in this case, actually we'll do a simple demo. So I will, let's just jump straight to this one. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to create a new Firefox image. This one I'm going to use a flag, and I'm going to do route block equals IP. So what this is going to do, so the first command here, these things just chain, they just concatenate. So route block equals IP means all networking is going to be shut off. So at this point I'm going to have a totally, we'll just run it. So at this point I'm going to have basically a totally useless browser. I guess it could run local stuff. But if I go in here, you'll see that if I try to go to any website, it's just going to, Firefox doesn't, that's hard-coded, it's not a website. So if I go to anything, I can't go to Facebook, I need some kind of social media, I can't go to my Twitter, okay. All right. So that's a lockdown Facebook. Now that's not very useful. So what I'm going to do here is same command, terminate Firefox, but then I'm going to add back in a route. So I'm going to route in, let's go to E2EVC, because that's a good website. So this is going to spin up, and since I've changed this spec here, it's going to create a new container ID. This is going to create a browser that will only go to e2evc.com. What's actually doing it, so particularly the core IP routing rules are based on IP addresses, and then we have a little shortcut there where when the DNS resolves, it'll automatically whitelist that particular IP. So I can't go to anything here, but if I go to E2EVC, oh wow, I can go to E2EVC. So it's a great browser. It's an E2EVC only browser. Okay, so that's a little bit of a frivolous application of it, but thinking about it from a enterprise perspective, that's actually very powerful because you can give to individual users browsers that will only access the web resources that they're entitled. And that's because that's on a per app basis, you can actually have all of these different containers living on a single, say, XenApp server or a single any other or VDI, and those users are only going to have access to those particular resources. I'm sorry, question? Yeah.
Especially if you want to use all the browsers with Java and all that kind of stuff, just direct it to that kind of backend.
Yeah, exactly. So, and I know that some people, like in some teams, they say like the social media team will have like a particular server that's only, that server's wired up to be able to access social media and the other ones are not and things like that. So this is letting you control that on a per app basis, and you can throw all those things on a single server. And also just to know, I think you can do that with some of the other appliances and things, but again, you're able to do that in seconds, and it's very simple. Doesn't require a lot of configuration or thinking or anything, which is good. It's our best customer. Okay, so and you can also do things. Actually, so let me. And these ads, I want to. Sorry, go ahead, Christian.
Can you talk a couple of words about the local infrastructure? If you maybe have a demo or something.
What do for the on-prem, I don't have a demo with the on-prem, so I'm showing it running against TurboNet as the hub, and then what's on the client. You can run your own hub on-premise, so you can install a hub that's running on your own server, and what happens, I think it's turbo config or something, hub server. So basically that client is just, you tell it, I want to use this hub server, and so you would just point, so the default hub server will be TurboNet, and then you would just point at your own hub server, and then you push. I'm not going to demonstrate it, but essentially you can push. I created an image. That image is living on the local repo. I can turbo push that. That'll go to whatever my hub server is. So I can push it to TurboNet, to my own repos on the cloud if you want to use our service, which would be infrastructureless. Or if you're running on-prem, you just turbo push it to your local turbo server, and then you can push out and manage those images from there. And the on-prem turbo server has AD integration and LDAP, and then you can do provisioning of permissions.
Is it a heavy server? What is it?
It's basically a web server, config, SQL, and file system. So it's a pretty lightweight. I mean, relative to what you guys are probably used to deal with, it's very lightweight. So.
When it gets the packages down from the turbo server.
Correct. You can pull from the turbo. You can always pull from the turbo server. You can actually export to a file, and you can always use the turbo server. Generally, people that are doing on-prem, they just kind of want to set up their own builds. So they just do their own builds. But you can always pull either images or recipes from the cloud services.
So basically, does it work this way that, for example, I have on my local server, Firefox, Office, whatever, and then once there's an update, he connects.
Yes, you can push it. Yes, and this is an interesting. I will show this later. So here, I'm manually. If I wanted to pull the update, I have to turbo pull, and it'll check for an update and pull down the latest version. And then we have a mode, which I'll show you in a second, which will check and automatically update the client to whatever the latest version is that the client is pointing to. So you as an admin can say, okay, I'm pushing up a new version of the image, and then next time everyone's going to get it. So you can run in latest mode. Actually, I'll also say you can do two other things which I'm not going to directly demo here. So something like Chrome that's updated frequently, you can set things up with Turbo. So as soon as a Chrome update's available, TurboNet updates right away. So we detect that a new Chrome came out and we'll put it on our hub. You can actually configure your client to run Chrome latest. So the Chrome latest app represents the latest version of Chrome always. So you'll never have to. Another thing we heard is just, like you spend a lot of time just, there's a guy that just patches. Oh, install, apply the patch, make the image, test it, push it out, right? So with that, that's eliminating that role or that time or that aspect of that job. And then another interesting thing you can do, and again, I'm not showing that, there's that, I talked about a little bit about there's a storage system back there that's managing all these containers and managing all those images. That is actually grabbing save points when you start, stop, or upgrade containers. So let's say you roll out a new version of an app, it blows up, you can actually revert the container. So you have a point-in-time restore on a per app, and that's on a per app basis. So you don't have to do, let's say, like a whole system image and then, restore the whole system image. You can actually just, in one command, revert back your state. So, like I think there was an Adobe Reader update that nuked systems a little bit ago. You could actually just revert back immediately, and the containers will just point-in-time restore back to that thing. So it's a great, and I'll show you how to do that from the web interface too. So it's great at managing patches, so you're always patched, and it's great at managing, giving you the undo button, so when the patch blows up, you can undo. Question?
I have an application which you open using a browser, it needs a Java plugin, and when I open the Java plugin, it goes to another application. In that application, I have an Excel opens up.
Yeah.
How does it handle that?
So that's configurable by the admin. So basically, you can allow it to talk to the other host applications. So like if it goes and opens, that's actually a common situation where one app opens an Excel plugin that launches Excel. So you have to de-isolate those pipes, which we can do. And then, but by default, the container will run in a strongly isolated mode, meaning that it will not see the Excel that's on the host device. Because those things are contextual. They depend on what you want. But you can de-isolate the container to talk to host Office instances. Okay. Actually, that highlights a couple of other points. The legacy Java that I showed you and the network isolation, they actually work very, very well together. Because a lot of people have legacy applications that need a legacy Java, but you don't want to have legacy Java. You don't want to let that person run legacy Java onto the public internet. Yep. Because the legacy Java, it has all the security holes, etc. So you combine the two, and you say, okay, listen, so I need Java 6 and whatever old Firefox or Chrome to be able to access like PeopleSoft or Oracle or something, some old cruddy system. What you do is you configure, the recommended practice for that is you configure that, you put in the legacy Java, and then you hardwire its network to only talk to that one server. So that way you're allowing them to run the legacy unpatched software or vulnerable software, but then you're creating a network isolation around that so they're not going out on the public internet. And Turbo, we have another part of the system for admins called the URL redirector that basically automatically kicks off the correct container based on the user's context. So if I'm in my host IE and I try to go access Oracle, it's like, oh, hey, you're trying to go to Oracle, it'll boot you into the legacy Java with network isolation container and kick off that container. So basically, you can always assure that the user's running the correct container that he needs to be using that resource. So the legacy stuff and the network isolation work really, really nicely in concert because you almost always have this issue with you don't want to expose legacy software to the public internet.
Can all that be delivered via XenApp?
Yes. And
XenApp instead that one.
In fact, it's even easier, and thanks to, I think actually Eric helped us prototype this, so thank you, Eric. So he has this in his lab. So there's actually a command you can run. You can set up all of your Turbo apps, and we have it's a basically just PowerShell script that just does everything for you. But basically you say, deploy to XenApp, here's my Turbo account, here's my delivery group or whatever it is, and it will take all the Turbo apps and it actually shoves them all and they'll appear as apps in the XenApp Manager configure Studio. And so you'll see all of the containers and they'll just show up like apps in XenApp. So you just go shove them all into XenApp and now they're all in XenApp. And Eric has a nice blog post. I should really have him on the payroll because he made a very nice blog post and he shows it. Yes, please. Yes, so, we'll do a webinar. We'll buy something. Anyway, I'm saying. Yeah, you can shove them all into, and he actually has a nice blog post where he shows it running with native apps and with Turbo apps and everything. Yeah.
Do you expose performance metrics of the containers?
Yeah, so the performance, in terms of benchmarking, the desktop apps, you will not, essentially you will not see a perf difference on the desktop applications. So in other words, the overhead is like a single small percentage overhead. On the server, so Turbo, I'm showing desktop apps. Turbo will actually also run server applications. We don't recommend it being used in production with certain isolation settings for certain server apps. So we don't recommend you run your production databases in Turbo containers right now. It's more sort of local and DevOps. We're sort of not perf optimized for those scenarios. But desktop scenarios work very, very well. In fact, Autodesk uses us to deploy all of the beta. If you're running Autodesk betas, they're all in Turbo VMs. So, and that was one of the key things, was the perf does 64-bit and all those other things. Yeah.
You may have said this, but the IP whitelisting or blacklisting, you can use DNS names for that?
Yes, correct. In fact, that's what I did when I said IP:e2evc.com.
Sorry, yeah.
Yeah. So when you say IP and give it a host name, that sets up a rule that on the first resolution of the DNS, it will assign that IP into the corresponding rule. And then, actually, so let me just quickly show another variant of that. So those, just like we had a Java layer or a Firefox layer or whatever, those routing rules are actually layerable. In other words, so you can create a layer that just contains routing rules. And that's very powerful because you can create one layer with routing rules and then apply that layer onto many, many apps. So if you have a sort of network routing for a particular kind of user or a particular group, and then they have 5 applications that those users use, you just layer that. You can combine, the apps and the routing rules. So, and another thing that we do that I'm quite fond of is we actually provide a set of routing rules that we manage on the TurboNet Hub. So a common one, for example, is if I turbo run Firefox, block social routes. So block social routes is a routing rule that we created that is coming from the Turbo Hub that automatically blocks all social media. So this is like instant, here's your ROI. So I can go to Google or whatever, I can go to CNN, but if I'm Rory, I try to go to Facebook, I spend all day on Facebook. So no Facebook, no Twitter, and then all of the social media and everything. So that's an example of subtractive approach, and also sort of the managed approach as well, where we're doing, we're actually setting up the rules for you. So if you don't want to configure them, you can do that. And we have predefined routing rules that block known ad networks and that block adult content, as well as social media content. So the adult content layer was like a stress test for the router. It has like 8 billion rules in it. So anyways, that one is time consuming to download. So any questions on, you look like you're, yes.
Where's the PowerShell?
Where's the PowerShell? Okay, so we don't have PowerShell right now. Well, somebody, so there's actually an open source one, but it's like somebody did some, but so there is a PowerShell to CLI converter. So, I'm sorry, are we out of time?
No, 5 minutes.
5 minutes, but I've only shown like 1% of, what am I, okay. So, yeah, exactly. What's going on? Okay, I better show some other stuff because, all right. So let me quickly show a couple other concepts. So I'm logged in as me or my demo account. So I'm going to go home, and you'll see that I have on Turbo. So this is the web interface. You don't have to use the web interface, but I have a bunch of apps here, and these are my apps, and these could be hub apps, these could be custom apps, whatever. You guys, if you want to use our hosted service, it's a great service, great hosted service. You can create private teams essentially, so you can upload and use our hub with your private with your individualized apps. So you have a bunch of apps here. So this laptop doesn't have a bunch of stuff. It's not totally clean. So I guess it has a little bit of things. But you'll see here, I don't have too much. So I'm going to show you something that is really cool. Let's say I had set up all these apps on my Turbo account. I just want to I have a clean machine. I just want to recreate my whole thing. I can say Turbo, is it subscribe? Yes, right? Okay. And give it my team name. And what the subscription does is actually goes and just says, okay, you have a team account or a personal account. I'm just going to configure everything on this machine that's linked to that account. So you see it's going through and it's just going boop, 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 and popping up that. That's also demonstrating something else that's very important when you're creating a desktop container system, is that it needs to integrate with the desktop. So when it's creating these things, it's creating start menu shortcuts, it's wiring up the file extensions, It's linking the IMAP protocol handlers. It's, what else does it do? It does some other stuff. Anyways, so that these containerized apps are going to behave, walk, talk, and quack exactly like a native application. So if you do Adobe Reader, double-click a PDF, it'll have the icons, it'll wire into the container. But I will get to the question in a second. I want to show my exciting climax of that demo, is that when I go to TurboNet, you'll see, oh my goodness, look at all these apps that are on my computer. It's amazing. Okay, so this is a super great, even just for personal use, just to have your tools and, kind of like the chocolate, people use sort of use chocolate or a script or something, is that you can go to a clean machine and just have everything pop up, and then just as quickly, it's like, oh, I don't want to use this machine anymore. Okay, it's gone. Everything's gone. Everything's all gone. Okay, and that should actually remind you in the context of VDI, or non-persistent VDI, you can actually spin up an image and then shove in the apps and then have them go away or move them to a different server, and it's just instantaneous. So I think this plus VDI or this plus XenApp is really a nice combination. Yes?
I have two different questions, a little bit related.
Okay.
How are you positioning the product? So what kind of use case do you recommend?
Yep.
And so on? What is most common?
Okay.
The other thing is, could you talk just briefly about pricing and licensing?
Okay, yeah. Okay, so in terms of the positioning, so it is a container engine for Windows. It's very important. So why is it different from Docker? So that's usually the first kind of big question when I say container. So important thing, it will run both desktop and server applications. So Docker's really about the server running web servers and database servers and stuff. That actually isn't our focus at all, although we can run all that stuff. We are really centered around the desktop application experience, which entails a lot of stuff like being able to do shortcuts and GUIs and all those other things. Okay, so that's difference one. Difference two, and this is very important. So Docker is depending on the Windows container implementation in Windows Server 2016. So Turbo uses its own VM implementation. So it does not depend on base OS functionality. And why is that important? It'll run on everything from Windows XP forward on the client side and Windows Server 2003 forward on the server side. And so there's actually a lot of people actually were discovering that a lot of people want to run containers on Server 2012. And you can do that with Turbo. But if you want to use Windows containers, you're going to be waiting until you're rolling 2016. Most people are rolling 2012 right now. Okay, so in terms of use cases, everywhere where you were using AppVert would be one thing. So Turbo will work on the desktop. And we also think, and what we were talking about here with a lot of people in the Citrix world, is it's really great for XenApp, really great for VDI, in the sense that you're going to take what you would traditionally use, let's say, siloing for, or other things to boost density or layering, and you're actually not going to have to use any of those things anymore. You can just containerize the apps and throw them all on one server, and you can keep as well. And there's a whole set of tools around managing, the base image of the server, and there's layering and FSLogix or whatever to deal basically with, I want to have an image and I want to have other apps on top of that, or maybe have that granular control. This is just allow you to do that at a per app basis without using any layers or having to tweak the base image. So that's, if you're talking about the Citrix world, that's kind of where we see that happening. Yep.
Sorry, you said Turbo does desktop and server?
Yes, correct.
You said you don't recommend server.
Well, we don't recommend server for, here's what we're saying. Some people are using it for production. I'm not going to say that every server application will run at high performance. In other words, we're not going to come out and necessarily off the box say any server app is going to run at great performance, because we know some things work great, some things don't work as great. So they'll run, but sometimes they'll see performance issues on production, because if you have a customer sitting there like, okay, what's the row insert rate? Okay, oh, it dropped 20%. Okay, I'm mad. So we do have customers that are doing it, but we just say, hey, you should benchmark it. We need to see, you might have to tweak things. Okay, but actually let me just quickly, just to prove that that's working. So here I'm going to show you actually have SQL 2012 Express, 2014 Express, SSMS. I'm going to run SSMS 2012, and here, let me just do this real fast. And this is also showing another thing here. I'm running out of time, but this is exciting, right? What I'm doing here is, I better push enter. Enter. Okay, so here I'm creating two instances of SQL Server, and you see I've done a route block equals TCP, UDP, so I'm blocking all networking. That doesn't sound very useful for a database server, except I'm assigning a name to the container. So that's going to be named SQL 1, that's going to be named SQL 2. Okay, they just popped up. So I can refer to those containers by name, and then I'm doing something a little fancier here is I'm running SQL Server Management Studio, and I'm establishing links into those SQL containers from the Management Studio container. So I've created two totally isolated databases. Oh, and by the way, I just want to point out something. That's SQL 1 and SQL 2. I just spun up two SQL servers. This one's a 2012 and that's a 2014. So it's not too bad. It's pretty fast. It's faster than setting up SQL, right? Right? You couldn't do that. Okay. And then I'm going to, and here's my SQL Management Studio. And what I did is established a routing rule from the SQL Management Studio container into these SQL containers. And that's just, it's the same name. You can actually, and I didn't show you this, but the reason I'm using TCP UDP here is you can actually block particular or route particular TCP or UDP protocols. You can say like, port 80 here maps to port 8080 over here. Anyways, but I'm not going to do that. Okay, so I have my here, and I can just approve that this is actually working, SQL 1. So I can log into SQL 1, and I think it's and I've connected to my SQL Server Database 1, and I've connected to my SQL Server Database 2, and that's pretty cool, right? So to spin up SQLs, to spin up management studios, and everything. So anyways, here's your quick little server demo. And it's also really fun because I can run the clients and the servers. So you can run your testing tools, you can run, you can run SSMS, you can run the Redgate stuff, you can run lots of stuff. So that's pretty fun. Okay, and those things just behave. You can just see that this is just like this is just like what I showed you before, except I'm running a SQL Server instance inside here. So it'll be in here somewhere. Oh, that's a lot of services. Okay, anyway, so I'll close out of that. Oh, did our VLC? Oh, hey, our VLC finished. So let me just finish that part.
All right, last question.
Okay, yeah, last question, and we'll haul up. So anyways, yeah, that's servers, and again, any other questions, and then we'll have to call it a day. I'm sorry?
Any other recommendations as far as antivirus is concerned?
Antivirus, oh, that's very interesting. We've been fixing our alerts. So generally these types of tools often have false positive issues with antivirus. So I believe we have resolved all or almost all of them and are now compatible with all the major antivirus vendors. Yeah, it sounds long. And I'll just quickly show that all those things are accessible through a web interface. So if you don't want to use a command line, you can actually just go into settings and you can do everything that I showed you, isolation and adding the networks and changing the runtimes and everything. That can be completely done through the web interface.
Show the FTA as well.
The what? What? Oh, how do I do that? Oh, I have to subscribe and then, I'll just show you in the config because I'm getting run out of the room. Oh yeah, here, see? So there's a file extensions that it's going to take over. And then I guess if I do like 7-zip maybe, here, let me get out of this. I'll go into 7-zip and it knows about, this one mine is not set up. Anyways, the new 7-zip one is, okay, but yeah, the file type associations work. You have Eric's seal of authority on it, yeah. COM objects work. COM, DCOM, services. You can have a DNS server embedded. You can have, what else is what are the common questions? Oh, shell, the little right-click shell extensions for the 7-zip, that works. People are always saying that doesn't, anyways, yeah, so the little right-click menus, the file types, kaboom, yes. Okay, all right, we got to kill it. So, all right, so anyways, go to Terminate. I'll hang around after if you have any more questions. So, thanks very much.